What's going on, everyone?
How's it going, people?
I'm Bill,
I'm Justin.
and we're back!
Welcome to
Couch review!
Couch Reviews.
It's basically like car reviews, except,
We're on the couch.
it is great to be back doing this together.
Yep,
So,
it is absolutely.
we're basically, it's basically what we're going to be doing is, it's basically going to be like car reviews, except we're going to be home on the couch, due to, the current,
Situation.
situation, and we can't go to theaters to watch movies.
At least not good ones.
Yeah, AMC would
Not
probably...
not exactly fair. I've heard good things about Raid and the Last Dragon.
And Judas and the Black Messiah. There's Oscar buzz around that movie. But yeah, so what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be reviewing stuff from streaming services,
Mm-hmm.
mainly from our favorite, and that is
Marvel.
we're gonna do some Marvel stuff. When the Snyder Cut comes out, we're gonna review that.
Probably gonna do Mortal Kombat.
Wait, what streaming service is that on?
HBO Max.
Okay, good. We're gonna do Mortal Kombat. We're gonna do MCU, some Star Wars stuff,
Oh boy.
and just anything else. And usually our format is okay. This one today we're doing a whole season review.
With the next Marvel, a mid-series and then a post-series. So
So that's what we're gonna do from here on in. But today we're gonna do the whole. We're gonna do a whole series review of
WandaVision.
WandaVision. It is available on Disney Plus right now, and I just want to
All
say,
9 episodes are now out.
I just want to say,
Go ahead.
okay, this since most of you have probably seen it, this is going to be spoiler filled. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're one of the very few people who haven't seen it, click away.
You've been warned.
You've been warned. Like, here's what we're gonna do.
Episode 9's been out. Look, if you haven't watched any of the episodes, you're not going to watch the series. Let's be honest.
That is correct.
Because episodes 1 and 2 has been out since January. We're now in early March. It's like saying this review has spoilers a month after a movie comes out. It's why. The only episode you really need to worry about with is episode 9, and I think we'll be okay with spoiling that. Because there are things that we should talk about in episode 9 that I would love to talk about.
And we will talk about that when we get to it. So now, enough dilly-dallying. It is time to get down to business and give you our thoughts on WandaVision. Okay, so for those who haven't...
Now, in traditional fashion, Bill, the plot.
Okay, well, the plot is very... I wouldn't say simple, but kind of. Wanda, a.k.a. Scarlet Witch, you may remember from the other MCU movies, and
Mm-hmm.
Vision, who was killed by Wanda in Infinity Wars and then killed by Thanos in Endgame.
No, no. Both in Infinity War.
Oh yes, sorry, small slip up.
Killed by Wanda, brought back by Thanos so he can take the Mind
No.
Stone.
So, and now they're in this world in which Wanda and Vision are married.
Mm-hmm.
In a few episodes in, they have a family, and their life is just basically a
Hunky
sitcom.
dory.
Like
Yeah.
it's a sitcom parody. Like the first three episodes, like the first episode is basically the 1950s. It's a parody of I
The
Love Lucy.
Dick Van Dyke, I Love Lucy. And
The,
it's it's a time where there weren't problems, there were shenanigans.
like in the
You
first
know,
episode, Vision's working out a job where they don't even know where he doesn't even know what he does,
mm-hmm,
and neither does everybody else. And
mm-hmm,
Wanda thinks there's something special about this date, but she doesn't know what it is.
mm-hmm.
And it finds out that Vision's boss is coming over for dinner. And Wanda thinks it's their anniversary, and hijinks
Hijinks
ensue.
ensue.
It's basically the typical thing you see in the sitcoms. You know what I mean? It's
Mm-hmm.
the typical the boss is coming over for dinner, and
Hijinks ensue.
that's basically all it is in the first episode. The second episode,
Well, first episode, I'll give it this. That scene where Mr. Hart, Vision's boss, starts choking. And Mrs. Hart, all she does is laugh and say, "Stop it! Stop it! Stop it! Stop it!" Admit it, you were a little creeped out by that.
yeah, because it turns out that guess what?
She's not in control of herself.
And that was fatal.
Mm,
And what's interesting is at the end of the first episode, they're asking like, "How long you been married? Where'd you come from? And why don't you guys have children yet?" And they're like, "Well, we've been married." Like they don't even know what's going on.
mm-hmm.
Like when I was watching that first episode, I was just sitting there thinking, "Okay, it's just a sitcom parody." But then when they started asking those questions, I'm like, "Ooh, yeah, what the heck?"
Mm-hmm.
And that like leaves you, okay, well, what's going on here? Then the first episode, you're thinking, okay, maybe there's something going on, but it's nice fun.
It's good, wholesome fun.
Fun! A joke from back in our high school days.
Yes.
So, yeah, that's episode one. You're just kind of scratching your head and you're like, okay, what was that?
Now, episode two, a little bit more of the same. And keep in mind, Marvel released episode one and two simultaneously. So they kind of wanted that to be their initial introduction to WandaVision.
And this is a parody of I Dream a Genie.
Absolutely. That was absolutely I Dream a Genie.
Do, 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 do. And This episode you kind of find silly. This is more like 1960s base.
Yes, it's 1960s. Um, you notice the hairstyles are different. They're going outside of the house more.
And we're talking about 50s part 2 60s, not
Yeah, not
free
the
love
late.
and dope 60s.
Yeah, not the late 60s where there's color.
We're talking about basically 50s 2.0.
Yeah, with the bob haircuts.
So anyway, what happens is like you would think this plot is so silly. Wanda and Vision are rehearsing for a community talent show doing a magic act.
I mean, come on, it's pretty amusing.
It's funny. It is so funny. And, you know, on top of that, Wanda's trying to fit in with basically these snobs because, like, this is creepy. Like, they all say, for the children, and then the audience responds.
For the children.
Doesn't that sound a little creepy to you, Justin?
A little bit.
For the children, for the children. It sounds like a cult. But yeah, it's still basically the fit in type of culture, but it's funny. And Vision gets offered a piece of gum.
And it gums up his works.
And he acts like he's drunk.
Literally.
And it's so funny to watch.
It's your standard sitcom plot, One
And
person's out of control of his actions, and the other person's trying to hide the facts.
and then oh yeah, we've got to introduce some of the other characters. There's Agnes, who is
The
the
nosy
nosy
neighbor.
neighbor. But we'll get to what she is more a little later, won't we?
There's Geraldine.
We'll get to more who she is.
Who becomes another one of Wanda's best friends.
And those are really only the real...
So far, that's all we know in Westview, which is where this takes place.
So that's the end of episode... So that's episode 2.
Except for one thing.
Oh yeah, a couple things. One, now you because she hears on the radio, Wanda, can you hear me?
Who's doing this to you, Wanda?
And then you hear because that's like during the Beach Boys song "Help Me, Rhonda." So you hear the "Help Me, Wanda." You're like, Wanda, who's doing this to you, Wanda?
And then at the very end of the episode, a beekeeper comes out of the sewer drain. And then all of a sudden, you cut to an earlier scene, and the whole set turns to color, and all of a sudden, Wanda's pregnant.
She's pregnant. And you're wondering, okay, the beekeeper and the who's doing this to you, Wanda. You're like, okay, what's going on here? And then we go to episode today's 3. We go to episode 3. And episode 3 is. Episode 3 takes place in the 70s.
Yep. It's Wanda and Vision preparing to have a baby. They're arguing over baby names, but Wanda's pregnancy is super accelerated. She goes through a full cycle of pregnancy in basically 24 hours. Um, and when they give birth, Vision's talking to neighbors, and they're giving cryptic clues, like the doctor saying, "I don't think I'll ever be able to get out of Westview."
And you're
And
like thinking, ooh, what's going on?
then Agnes acting really strange with Herb.
Yeah, Herb is basically one of the neighbors
Hmm.
who befriends Vision and saying, you may want to stay away from Geraldine.
She doesn't belong here. She's not one of us.
And then when the babies are born, Geraldine's there to help deliver. Okay, this is the 70s. This is sort of a parody of a little bit of Brady Bunch, maybe Good Times.
Mm, I think that's fair.
Um yeah, so it's a parody of that, and it turns out they give birth to twins, and then Geraldine, who helped deliver the babies, like, I gotta say, it's so funny when Wanda's trying to hide that she's pregnant, and
Yeah.
Geraldine's just like talking to her.
Mhm.
Like, oh, the new corporate job and then put me in the corporate office. I got promoted.
But then,
The babies are born.
and then, um, Wanda starts talking to Geraldine of how she was a twin, and then Geraldine had to ask. Pietro, right? Ultron killed him, didn't he?
For those who don't know, Pietro is
Quicksilver,
Quicksilver, Wanda slash Scarlet Witch's brother.
who died in Ultron.
Ultron killed him. And then Wanda basically throws her out.
Mm,
And then she just basically gets re-blipped.
well, she doesn't get re-blipped. That was a flashback. Episode 4 is a flashback to the aftermath of Endgame. She gets re-blipped into existence. It's been 5 years. Um, she is now Monica Rambeau, and she was in the hospital because her mother, Maria Rambeau from Captain Marvel, was getting surgery for her cancer, which was successful at the time.
And then
It turns out that the cancer came back and she died about 2 years ago. Can I just say something?
go right ahead.
Can I have a show or a movie without superheroes that takes place in this world post blip? I just want to see what that world would look like
Me
from
too. It's like,
a civilian perspective.
you know what? Because I think they had that joke in what is it, Spider-Man: Far From Home, and goes, my brother who was younger than me, I come back, he's now older than me.
Hmm. But that's the least of it. And think about this. You're a married man and you get blipped.
Okay.
You get re-blipped. Your wife's remarried. And they're living in your home. But the home was released to your wife and her new husband. So now you're homeless. You have no home, you have no wife.
Your life is screwed up.
Yeah.
Your life is just screwed up.
You could do like a West Wing-esque drama.
Where's Martin Sheen and Aaron Sorkin when we need them? Aaron Sorkin, you better start getting right in. I want a treatment on my desk Monday morning. Okay, next Monday morning.
But yeah, it's we meet Monica Rambeau. She goes to Sword where she is an agent of where director Hayward gonna talk about him more later. Says that she's grounded from space missions because space is kind of Sword's thing. And she's being reassigned to I think it's paranormal anomalies.
Mm-hmm.
She gets partnered up with FBI agent Jimmy Woo from Ant-Man and the Wasp, who finally mastered uh, up-close magic.
I remember him. And he's also a youth pastor.
Mm. Yep, he turns out to be a thoroughly okay guy, even though he was kind of a dick in Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Well, you could just make the argument he was just doing his job in Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Yeah, but he was kind of a dick to Scott when he said that, oh, you'll be back.
But yeah, it turns out they're wondering.
You know, he hasn't aged either. Did he get blipped?
I don't know.
Anyways,
But anyway, they're wondering what's going on. And they discover the force field thing over Westview.
hmm and the police denies Westview even exists, despite there being a perfectly seen sign. Asks, where are you from then? Eastview.
And it turns out that they're trying to discover what's going on. This is like the what's going on episode. Wouldn't you say that?
hmm This is kind of the look behind the curtains episode.
And then we see and then we get in some other minor characters who you may have forgotten.
Dr. Darcy Lewis. That's
You
right.
may
She's a
remember.
doctor now. She's a doctor in astrophysics.
You remember her
Graduate
from whatchamacallit.
the Thor movies before they got good.
But here, she's much better.
She's not as annoying. I mean, look, if you don't like her voice, that's on you. But she's more tolerable in this than in the other Thor movies because at least here she's the smartest person in the room. At least here She's not annoying other people because she's annoying. She actually has a role.
And then you discovered what's going on. If you remember back in episode 2 with the Wanda, what are they doing to you? It turns out
Hmm.
that was Jimmy Woo.
Hmm. This show is very interesting in how they paced it, and it's very clever. And I loved how they did it because they kind of uh, made the first 3 episodes strictly in Wanda's world, and then now we're getting the cross in between, and it's going to get a lot more fascinating with that. Um, what ends up happening now with Monica, though, she gets sucked into the field, and she's forced to be Geraldine.
Because you get sucked into the field.
Hmm.
You know what? I gotta admit, this was the episode that I'm like, because you're like, because I remember you texting me, did you watch episode 4 yet? And I'm like, not yet. Saying, watch it. And when I'm watching it, it's like, it's starting that everything is starting to unravel. Things are starting to get revealed. And I'm just sitting there, whoa, things are getting interesting. Because I feel like the first 3 episodes are just a straight up sitcom parodies.
But I'm sure if you were to rewatch those episodes now, you'd have a lot more appreciation for them.
Yeah, cause like you said, it's like setting things up.
Hmm.
And then you think of those little hints, like in the first episode at dinner when they're like, I don't know where we're from or how we got married.
It's uncomfortable, right?
What was that?
It's uncomfortable, right?
Yeah, it is. Or the whole Wanda and the beekeeping thing in episode 2. Or the whole with Pietro was killed by Ultron.
Yeah. And we see exactly what happened with Monica, Geraldine, regarding that. Um, turns out that the beekeeper was a sword agent, and the jump rope attached to him was supposed to be a bungee cord, and that was supposed to be a hazmat suit. So anything that goes through the field turns into that era's equivalent, almost, or sitcom friendly version of that equivalent.
Exactly. And now they're wondering, what is this force thing and what's going on? And I'm like, oh, now we're getting good here.
Hmm.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are now getting good.
Now we have the Hex team, as I think it's unofficially called: Monica, Darcy, and Jimmy Woo. They're the constant people dealing with the Hex stuff. When Monica gets sucked in, gets pushed back out, Monica tells everyone, it's Wanda. It's all Wanda. And that tells us Wanda's the one doing this to Westview.
She
Wanda is the villain. Bum, bum,
um
bum.
and now you're wondering, oh boy. And now episode 5, we go back to Hunky Dory Town,
In the 80s.
which is, I would say, this is a parody of the Wonder Years
Hmm.
and Growing Pains. Maybe a little Full House.
A little bit of Full House, especially the opening.
So it's basically the 80s sitcoms. And it's the. And you find this at the kids' age.
Very rapidly, but
Yeah. At the beginning of the
it's
episode,
not.
they're like
But
five.
Wanda doesn't know why that it's happening.
They're born, and then before you know it, they're five.
Hmm.
And the funniest part of this aging rapidly is the whole we don't think you when they when they find a dog.
Oh yeah, where they're like, we don't think you guys are ready to have a dog until you're at least 10.
No, 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 don't.
No, no. And then what happens? They age up to 10.
Happy 5 additional birthdays.
Oof. That means 5 more years of presents to buy.
Yep. And it's just, and you're like, okay, how did that happen? And okay, now you see like basically the balance of Wanda's world.
And the real world.
Like they're finding out like the feed going, and they're like, oh, you're still in the 50s, still in the 60s.
And now we're in the 80s. And Hayward orders them to send a drone into the hex. That's what the field is called. It's called the hex. We'll find out why later. Um, but unknown to Monica, who's operating the drone is armed with lethal force. So when Monica's trying to be diplomatic to Wanda and talking to her through the drone, Hayward orders the drone to fire. Wanda's already being described as one of the most powerful beings in the MCU, so firing at her with.
That's not gonna help.
Now, she leaves the hex, confronts the sword agents, and tells them basically, leave me alone and I'll leave you alone. Fuck with me, I will fuck with you. And she mind controls all of the armed soldiers, aim their guns at Hayward, and at the time I was like, oh shit. Now I kind of wish they fired, but we'll
Shit is
get to
getting
that
real,
later.
folks.
So yeah, we're definitely seeing Wanda kind of as this antagonist, but not necessarily for the evil. She just wants to be left alone with Vision to live her life. But now Vision's catching on. Strange things are happening at work. That thing with Agnes and that thing with Agnes earlier where she's like she forgot her line and she's asking Wanda, should I try that again? Kind of like an actress would. Um, that whole thing with Herb in the 70s episode. That weird email thing when when Vision's at work, and then he frees that one guy, and then you get to hear the horror of what the citizens of Westview are experiencing under Wanda's control.
This is in episode 5, right?
Yeah. The agony that they're under. Like, they experience all of Wanda's nightmares. They have no control. They're not even able to see their family. They're prisoners in their own body.
Basically.
It's it's scary when you think about it. Like, there's some really good elements of horror in this. Like, and not the shock value horror, although if you do want shock value, episode 4 did have this.
Ah! Zombie Vision.
Oh my god. When I saw that in episode 4, I was like, oh.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was the thing. And it scared
Anyways,
the crap out of us.
yeah, that was kudos to Marvel to make some pretty creepy imagery.
Yeah, because we usually think of Marvel, think of, more lighthearted stuff, but yeah, you see Zombie Vision. And
Well,
also in
we
episode
learn later it's more of a manifestation of Wanda's guilt, but that's just maybe.
episode 5, you see some the dog they got, Sparky, died.
Yep, ate some weeds in Agnes's yard. Um, and then Wanda and Vision have a massive argument. Um, Wanda tries to end the argument by having the credits roll, and then they have a massive argument. They both end up flying, yelling at each other, which the acting in this is phenomenal. The chemistry that these two actors have
Paul Bettany and Elizabeth Olsen.
Is out of this world. It's and then there's a knock on the door. And who is it?
Pietro.
But it's not the Pietro that we knew in Age of Ultron. It's Evan Peters, who played Pietro in the X-Men movies. Now, this was a great cause for excitement for a lot of people, because everyone thought this was the multiverse in work.
Because for those of you who don't know, here's the quick version. Here's the Cliff Notes version. Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch were shown at the end of Captain America: Winter Soldier in the after credit scene.
Mm-hmm.
And they're mostly known for the X-Men franchise. But because at the time, Fox, before the mouse owned them, because they were part of the X-Men universe. So when Marvel was using Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, they could not say mutants or X-Men, so they just made up their storylines that they were experiments of Hydra.
Products of the Mind Stone.
But yeah, and something we'll get to in a little bit. But so yeah, Pietro meets um Wanda, and you're like, oh, Quicksilver's back. And then we go to the next episode.
Which is very Malcolm in the Middle.
It's now like
Um,
Malcolm in the Middle y. So it's
laugh
like,
track's gone. It's replaced with a single camera setup. And now you're getting a lot more from like the kids' perspective. They talk to the camera, break the fourth wall.
you're not the
Um,
boss of me now.
and you have and this is the Halloween episode. This is the episode where um Wanda gets to dress up as her comic accurate self. She claims that she is a Sokovian fortune teller. And Vision pretends to go out on a neighborhood watch.
And it was, well, I have to go protect the neighborhood from mischief.
I just love Vision in this show. He's so like prim and proper, and it's just hilarious to see it coming from him.
And he's actually trying to figure out what's going on.
Yeah. And what's going on is not pretty. He goes to like the outskirts of town. People are like acting kind of like animatronics you would see in Disneyland. You know, the ones that are like,
And he's like, what's going on?
and then all of a sudden she sees Agnes dressed like a witch in her car, just frozen. So he does the mind thing on her, and she reveals that Vision is supposed to be dead. So he goes further and further out of town. Meanwhile, Wanda, Pietro, and the kids are in at the Halloween fair, having a grand old time. They discover that
They have
both Billy and Tommy have powers. Um, Pietro uh, apparently doesn't remember much after dying, just remembers waking up, thinking that her sister needed him. And he is aware that something weird's going on too, but he doesn't really care. He calls Wanda out on a couple things in dickish ways, especially when Billy finds out that Vision's in trouble when he tries to leave the hex and starts to fall apart, prompting Wanda to. Oh, Vision's in front of all these sword agents as well, who are doing nothing as Vision is falling apart. Darcy like tries barging in, forcing them to help him. They handcuff her to a car. Wanda, in an attempt to save Vision, expands the hex, engulfing all the sword agents and Darcy and it gets nuts.
Yeah, and you know what? When Vision is trying to escape the hex, it's kind of painful to watch.
Yeah. Um this show again, really great moments of horror. Like when you see those weird animatronic people, you see tears like running down their faces as if they are trapped. And it's an incredible thing to it's just it's hard to stomach, and it's also brilliant.
It really is.
And then you go into episode 7, the Modern Family episode, where they're talking to a film crew. They do some with Vision. Why am I even talking to you people?
Like Vision is now in the real world.
Um, no, Vision's not in the real world now.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
Those sword agents and Darcy got brought into the hex now, and
Oh
they're
yeah,
a
because they were
circus
in like the
act.
circus thing. I'm sorry, I forgot.
Yeah, now they're a circus act. Darcy's like this escape artist and thinks that Vision's coming onto her. Hi, funny, fun hijinks, blah blah blah. Frees her. They steal a funnel cake truck to try and get to Wanda. And on the way, uh, Darcy explains everything that happened to Vision in the events of Infinity War, and that he is not the real Vision.
And then it's back in and like back in the hex. You know what? I just want to say something I really appreciate. Like I said, this is like a Modern Family parody.
Hmm.
Um, this is like a Modern Family parody, and I like how Wanda is basically exactly like Claire from Modern Family.
I decide that I have no answers, and my life is kind of pointless, meaningless.
That she's basically from the previous episode, and this episode has basically become the soccer mom.
Hmm.
And yeah, so you got that, and you also got Darcy again explaining everything to Vision.
But now all these obstacles are preventing them from reaching Wanda, at least until Vision's like, fuck this, I'm gonna fly. And then Agnes offers to watch the kids she has some, while Wanda has some her time because really strange things are happening around the house. Like the microwave keeps changing generations, or like the TV would change generations. Gaming consoles. it's like things are acting weird in the hex now, and it seems like Wanda a bit more off than she could chew. Um, but then Monica tries to go back into the hex, even though she's been warned that going in and out of the hex fundamentally changed her DNA. There's no telling what would happen if she went through a third time. Well, anyone who knows who Monica Rambeau is in the comics would know that she is a cosmic superhero named Photon. And now she got her photon powers. She confronts Wanda. Wanda tries to push her out of the hex. Monica stops it, lands a superhero landing, and tries to get Wanda on her side again. But then Agnes intervenes, the nosy neighbor.
And it turns out she's not just the annoying neighbor.
Not yet. So, and now you have Wanda in Agnes's house. Kids are nowhere to be seen. And Wanda asks where they are, and Agnes just says, "Oh, they're in the basement." She goes down the basement. It's all covered in vines, all creepy and mysterious. And then all of a sudden, Agnes comes out with uh her bunny, and she's like, "Let me introduce myself. My name's Agatha Harkness. Pleasure to meet you." Now,
Now what?
it was Agatha
Yeah.
all
Long.
along.
Yeah, this theme song, it shows that she was the one behind Pietro.
She's the one behind Pietro. She's the one who was causing mischief um, with the aging. She's the one who was causing the mischief with talent show. Um, she faked being a victim to Vision in the previous episode, and she killed Sparky.
And I killed Sparky.
That is unacceptable.
Bad! Wrong!
You, ma'am, are the most evil villain in the MCU.
Messing with the universe? Fine, but you kill a dog!
And we have trouble.
As President FDR said, you mess with me, fine, but you mess with my dog. As you can see, we're dog lovers, so.
So it's revealed Agatha Harkness is a witch from the original Salem trials. She was studying this dark magic and was going to be drained of her powers by her coven, including her mother. But then Agatha turns the tables and takes their powers. And she becomes more powerful. So now Wanda's trying to fight against Agatha, but Agatha ruined the room.
As in, she can't use her powers inside there. Only the person who.
Conjures the ruins. The runes can use magic. We are now being introduced to more rules of magic in the MCU.
And this is gonna be the setup for like Doctor Strange, right?
Yes, it is. We learn a lot more about Wanda's past, how she loved watching sitcoms with her family. Um, she wanted to watch this one episode, something about Walnut.
The Dick Van Dyke Show.
Yeah, of the Dick Van Dyke Show. Want of a Walnut or something like that. Um, and then all of a sudden, a bomb goes off, killing her parents, but sparing her and Pietro. But all of a sudden, a Stark Industries bomb lands right in front of them, not detonated yet. And they're trapped there, staring at this bomb that could blow up in any moment for like 2 days. Agatha says that she used a probability charm, even though Wanda insists she isn't a witch. You have then you get to see the Hydra years and what happened to give her her powers. They expose her to Loki's scepter, and then the Mind Stone just yeets itself over to Wanda and gives her a vision of a figure who looks strikingly like Scarlet Witch. And then she gets her powers. Um, then we learn Wanda and Vision had a very tender moment after the events of Ultron, when she's mourning for Pietro. She's watching an episode of Malcolm in the Middle, and they're bonding over that. And then after Endgame happened, she goes to Sword, try to retrieve Vision's body.
And they
This,
declined.
they wouldn't give him the body, but they showed her what they were doing to the body,
They were dismantling them.
and it was not pretty. It it was kind of hard to look at, honestly. Because if this was a human being, this would be gory as hell.
And even though it's not a human being, it is still pretty tough to watch.
Because this was a sentient being capable of feeling and love, and compassion, and humanity. Reduced to that. Wanda does her magic thing, says, I can't feel you anymore, and leaves, proving that what Hayward was showing the Hex crew earlier of Wanda breaking into Sword, stealing Vision's body, was not accurate. Hayward lied.
Oh, Hayward, you're on our shit list, pal.
Oh, this is why Jeremy Johns calls him Director Dick. Anyways, um, she jumps into a car and there's an envelope in there from Vision with an address at Westview. She drives to this suburb where everyone kind of looks a little miserable, down the dumps. But it turns out Vision bought them a plot of land for them to grow old together and start a family.
And she goes to that plot of land, and
She loses it.
that's when the hex starts.
She has a mental breakdown.
And it's
Like,
tough to watch.
you have to imagine what she's going through. This is someone who lost the love of her life, saw her saw him die twice. Once by her own hand,
And then by Thanos.
and then by Thanos. And then seeing him in that state, to find out that he bought a plot of land for them to start a life together.
And then that's when she has the breakdown and starts the hex and turns this. And that's where all the sitcom stuff is coming from.
Mhm. She creates Vision from the same spell as the Hex. And he starts generating out of this yellow energy coming out of Wanda. And then we're in the 50s. She's a lovely housewife, a loving housewife to a synthetizoid.
And because you see, because, not just with Vision, but also how she had to watch her parents die and Pietro die.
Her
So,
life's been nothing but tragedy.
because the thing is, why with the sitcoms, and I discovered this today when I was finishing up episode 8, the sitcoms is something that gave her comfort.
It was a coping mechanism to her.
Because, as bad as their life was, and what's the country's name again?
Sokovia.
And Sokovia, it was what, because like like once a week, the parents would bring home DVDs of like sitcoms like I Love Lucy and the Van Dyke Show and I Dream of Jeannie. And because it's like the only time she was really happy was watching those sitcoms.
It's the only comfort she had. It
And
remi- it's an escape to a simpler existence. And I think that's something that all of us can understand.
especially
So,
now.
yeah, I would love to live in a sitcom right now.
Yeah, because we all want to go to like movie. Because a lot of us, with everything that's going on, whether it's movies or TV shows or sports, we just want escapism. We want to get away from everything that's going on.
Yeah,
And I think that makes this show kind of relatable. Because, maybe
yeah.
some of us didn't lose parents or a sibling or a partner like Wanda did. But
This
when you realize reality is miserable, you want to go into something that's,
safe, safe space, if you will.
And I just want to say one thing when you were talking about the Hydra years with Pietro,
Mhm.
um, and you brought up that it was the guy from the X-Men movies earlier, and saying and people were getting excited like, "Ooh, is it the multiverse?" It looks like from here on in they're going with the MCU plot line of Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch.
Yes. So
Because we all explained that earlier. And now the final episode.
it is now revealed that Wanda is the Scarlet Witch, the only witch able to control chaos magic, which is a magic that is not even supposed to be real. Chaos magic is the ability to manipulate reality itself. and Wanda is destined to destroy the world.
Of course.
No, she's not going to rule the world. She's going to destroy it.
But
See, at least Thanos kept the planet alive.
and should we go more into detail about episode 9 or
Um, I mean, now we have to deal with White Vision, the version of Vision that Hayward was creating in the Sword Lab out of Vision's original body.
and he wants to destroy actual Vision.
Yes, that is his primary objective. Um, so after a brief fight between Wanda and Agatha, White Vision appears, caresses Wanda's head, starts crushing
Starts
it,
squishing it.
and then finally, Wanda's Vision appears, and huge superhero battle ensues. Wanda and Agatha are fighting, but every time Wanda tries to throw magic at Agatha, Agatha absorbs more of Wanda's magic and indulges her life force. Um, Meanwhile, with Pietro, um, he kidnapped Monica, who was snooping around Agatha's house. Um, Turns out he's actually a resident of Westview named Ralph Boner. Yep, his last name is Boner. Okay, I want to talk about this.
All right, go right ahead.
I am not one of those people who thought that Evan Peters was the introduction of the multiverse. A lot of people thought that. I thought it was just cute casting. I thought it was just a fun nod to the previous franchise. Um, because that version of Quicksilver acts nothing like the X-Men Quicksilver. There's difference in how they behave. And I guess part of that can be related to how it's, the way people talk in those time frames. Like he talked very weird in the 80s episodes. Can I get a smooch from my little sister? Something like that. And then the 90s episode, he's like all the slob and, well, granted, he was dressed up as his comic accurate Quicksilver costume, but um, a lot of people were really upset about the Ralph Boner thing
And why are they upset?
because they thought that if they were going to cast Evan Peters, they needed to promise something more than just a side gag. I think to them, they consider this kind of not quite a Mandarin offense, but close. The misdirect of it. Because everyone was expecting this was the first connection from the X-Men movies to the MCU.
And they were disappointed.
And they were very disappointed. They were also somewhat disappointed by um, the fight between the Visions, how that ended. I loved how they resolved that. the whole ship of Theseus
Yes,
conundrum.
I remember that. I like
I
that too.
I love that conundrum. It's such an interesting conundrum to think about it because it's think about it. Think about it with a car, right? You you have a car that you need to replace in its lifespan. You replace every single part of that car, but not all at the same time. Is it still the same car?
Good question.
That's basically the conundrum with the visions. Um, Wanda's vision is the mind, but none of the body. White vision is the body, but none of the mind, until Vision unlocks his memories, but and then he flies away. That's the part that people got a little upset about because they thought it was a little bit of a cop out.
What do they thought they were going to be fighting together?
No, that well, we never find out what happens to White Vision. We don't see him again. It they feel it was kind of rushed. The pacing in episode 9, I admit, can be better, but the stuff with Wanda and Agatha is really, really strong. And then Wanda uses Agatha's tricks against her, creates runes all over the hex, so Agatha can't use magic anymore. And Wanda drains her of her magic, and she becomes the Scarlet Witch in an actually a pretty good adaptation of the original costume.
Yeah, I thought that costume was cool.
You know, it the super comic accurate costume was the Halloween episode. That doesn't that wouldn't look good in a movie. But Wanda's new costume as the Scarlet Witch is it's fantastic. I I love it. It's it's a great modernization of it.
Yeah, I thought it was cool too. And then and and then when she beats Agatha, she goes back to being.
Agnes, oh my god. Think about how she probably would have rather died. I mean, think about that. That's again, you're being trapped inside your own body, being forced to say things you that aren't you. It's it's a prison.
And then comes the end of the episode, which is
The ending of the hex.
it's. Would you say it's sad, or would you say maybe it's more bittersweet?
It's sad. Um, oh, forgot to mention this. Director Hayward, when Agatha and Wanda were fighting, Agatha lifted the spell on all the citizens, and they were all like telling them how much agony it is under their spell, how they see her nightmares, how they feel her pain, and all that. And she has a freak out and ends up starting choking all of them. It's do horror really well. It without doing like gore or jump scares or because these are horrifying concepts. Um, but when she tries to free them by undoing the hex, Vision starts fading away, and the kids. Yeah, the kids are tied to the hex too. Hex goes, the kids go. So she's saying goodbye to her kids, saying thank you for choosing me as your mom. And then a tender moment between Wanda and Vision before Vision eventually goes away for a third time.
She had to watch him go away 3 times.
Well, technically, there's a white Vision out there, so if she can figure out how to put the soul back into Vision, there's a chance.
And then, you know, it is kind of funny though when they're like, "Do they all hate me yet?" When she says
Oh,
it,
oh yeah, they.
hmm, let's see. You put them in a hex. You gave them your nightmares. I'm sure they're cool with it.
It's not just their nightmares; they're trapped
You
in
trapped
their.
them in a hex for a bit, so Justin, I think they'll be cool with it. What do you think?
Oh, she's gone. She goes away to a secluded cabin in the woods, becomes a hermit, and secretly learning dark magic in the back room, trying to find her, figure out if she can bring her kids back.
And at the end, she meets someone who has like green.
Oh yeah, so Monica actually saved the kids from Hayward, who tried to shoot them.
Asshole!
I'm sorry. That there was a sliver of hope that maybe you were doing this for the right reasons until you shot at children.
The children!
Shame on you.
Shame!
Shame.
Shame! And Hayward gets arrested.
Yep. Hayward gets arrested for trying to ram over Rambo and the kids, only was stopped by Darcy's funnel cake truck. Right in the nick of time. Um, he gets arrested. He goes into the theater, and a scroll says that a friend is waiting for her in outer space.
And this is a setup for the next Doctor Strange movie.
No, the Wanda one was set up to the Doctor Strange movie. The um, after credit scene. You didn't say for the after credit
No,
scene,
I
did you?
did. I just. Can you
All right.
elaborate on it a little bit?
So in the after credits scene, yeah, I can see how it's confusing. So the way I interpret it is Wanda learned how to create astral projections so she can be in more than one place at a time. Um, and now she's in the back room as the Scarlet Witch, looking for a spell, I think, to bring her children back.
Yes, I did see that.
And that's leading into the multiverse of madness, which is supposed to be horror.
And if it's anything like this, I think that's a good depiction of it.
Mm-hmm. Because now she has the Darkhold, or the Darkhold, the Book of the Damned, and she's learning from it. I have a couple of theories of who might be the villain of Doctor Strange 2. Wanda might be one of them. Oh, interesting question though.
What?
Is Wanda going to be the next big bad of the MCU?
That's a very good question. What do you think?
I think Wanda is such a she's the kind of character that it's very hard to tell because her mental state is so fragile. It doesn't take a lot for her to snap, as we saw. And she's more powerful than the Sorcerer Supreme. She's. I think we're in for some serious shit.
And when does the new Doctor Strange come out?
When does Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness come out? Next year.
Yeah. Well, overall,
Overall thoughts. First few episodes are better in hindsight.
when you watch them again, you figure out like, okay, this is like laying the groundwork for what's going to happen.
Yes. It's like, has there ever been a movie where the first movie you didn't really get, you didn't really like, but once you saw the second movie, you gained a new appreciation for what the first movie established?
Can't name one off the top of my head, but
I can't either, but I'm sure one exists. It's like that.
yeah, because the first three
Um,
episodes, I feel like, okay, I'm just watching a sitcom parody with Marvel characters in it.
which is fine, which be perfectly serviceable entertainment. But no, this is Kevin Feige's passion project. This is 100% Marvel. This is weird. This is interesting. This is
Fun.
surprising, fun, heartbreaking. It's a full emotional spectrum. And don't really get any of the emotion being undercut. The goodbye scene between Wanda and Vision was very powerful.
Heartbreaking.
You know, Wanda, just tell me this. What am I? You are the part of the soul gem that lays inside of me. You are my sadness and my hope, but mostly, you are my love. That is great writing. George Lucas, take fucking notes. That's how you write love.
So, yeah, my thoughts on it is the first, okay, so the first episodes, I was kind of like, okay, what the hell is this? Well, not what the hell is this? I was like, okay, the first three episodes, I'm like, okay, it's sitcom parodies with Marvel characters in them. Like in the first three, you have like the subtle hints,
Yep.
like the first episode when they're like wondering, yeah, who are we? How did we meet and get married? And then in the second episode, you have
You have the whole thing with the talent show, but you had the beekeeper, you had the radio. Who's doing this to you, Wanda? And then the third episode is when it started getting really weird.
And then when at the end of the third episode, like, oh, something bigger's going on here, folks.
Yeah, end of the third episode, a lot of the MCU fans who were starting to get nervous, but were going to tread on because they wanted to fill out their MCU scorecard, were probably breathing a heavy sigh of relief when the third episode ended.
Because all the MCU geeks were probably having MCU withdrawal.
Because all that was really happening, all they, all the MCU fanatics really had going for them in the first few episodes were the fact that Wanda was having children, and her children in the comics are superheroes themselves.
That is true.
Were you disappointed by anything in the comment in the show?
Oh, let me think. Shoot, it's on the tip of my tongue. I can't remember right now. Okay, I just want to first say to our audience, sorry if we're brain wise, I'm like having brain farts right now. It's just that because I'm right. This is why we're going to be doing like midpoint reviews, and
And post series reviews.
because trying to talk about 9 episodes all at once is kind of tough.
Yeah, you got a lot of ground to cover. Fortunately, Falcon Winter Soldier is 6 episodes.
Yeah, and that's only going to be like three. Three. Okay, we're done. Who wants coffee?
Yep,
But yeah, I don't know if I really think of something I was disappointed in.
I have to say the acting across the board was fantastic. Hayward was a little cartoony in his villainy, but
Oh, okay. Maybe this is more of a nitpick.
mm,
Um, like how in the fifth episode, instead of like going fully into the real world, they're still in the sitcom world.
yeah.
I was like, hey, we know what's going on. Let's do full real world shit now. But on the other hand, I kind of understand because you kind of want to see the comparisons between or the parallels between the real world and Wanda's world or the Hex.
Well, when you're in the hex, the rules of the hex are a sitcom. It's the rules of the hex. Um, like you see that in the seventh episode, when they're driving home and all of a sudden Vision's doing an interview with the crew, and he's like, "What am I doing here? Get this off me!" and just walks off set. Like, there's rules to this universe that you can't really control, and that's the point. Like, this is the show within the show, and Darcy is watching that show. Has been watching that show up until episode 7 when she becomes part of that show. And once that episode ends, that's when they drop the facade.
Yeah, I just yeah, because I kind of understood it, but at first I'm like, okay, let's get on with the real world stuff. But Now I understand now because, like I said, you want to see the parallels, and that's where everything is, you know.
Hmm.
So, you have any other thoughts?
Um, I'm glad that I kind of went into the show with tapered expectations. Um, because if I believed the hype and fan theories on the internet, I probably would have been really disappointed by the last episode. But you know, I had more um practical ideas of what was going on, especially with Pietro. I knew that Pietro wasn't going to be a multiverse thing. Um, I had a feeling he was just going to be a Westview resident named Boner.
Nah, I'm sorry. I just got a funny story. I'll tell you off air. I'll tell you
Okay.
off camera. It just
Okay.
reminds me of that. But
Um, I knew that there wasn't going to be like Mephisto or anything like that. I knew that once it was revealed to be Agatha, it was just going to be Agatha. Um, White Vision took me off guard. I will say that, and I was a little disappointed that he was kind of rushed a little. I liked the whole ship of Theseus thing a lot because that stuff fascinates me. I like when heroes can come up with creative solutions to their problems.
yeah, I thought that was interesting.
Um, my favorite is still Dormammu, come to bargain.
Yeah.
Um, and I do wish that the Hex crew got a little more screen time in the last episode because I think they got one or two scenes, and then the rest was focused on Wanda and Vision. Dorsey was in one scene, one.
Who was this?
Um, Darcy and Jimmy was in three, including the mid credit scene.
Yeah, I
All
wish
Mon-
we did see more of the Hex Crow.
all Monica really did was subdue fake Pietro, Boner, and stop bullets from going through um, the kids because now she has her photon powers. By the way, the sequence when she's gaining her powers, trippy.
So, overall, I'm really glad I gave it a watch. Like I said, the first three episodes kind of were like, okay, what is this?
Well,
But the
I,
rest of the
I,
show,
I,
I think, was pretty strong.
I challenge you to watch those first three episodes again. See if your opinions changed.
Do I have to do this tonight?
No.
Okay, good, because John Oliver's coming on soon. But anyway,
Okay,
I got priorities, Justin.
okay,
I got
okay.
priorities.
So, unfortunately, our usual ratings of see it, stream it, skip it
Has to
are
be
gonna have.
alternated.
Yeah, it's gonna have to be changed up a little bit.
We'll come. We'll come up with something. What should we do it?
Um, pay
Stream it
for it.
now, stream it later, or don't bother.
Ooh,
What do you think of that?
pay for it yourself. mooch off someone else, or don't bother.
Justin, what do you say yours?
Um, I think this is a streaming service seller. So this is definitely buy it for yourself. I highly recommend this series. If you love sitcoms, you're gonna love. If you love sitcoms and you don't like Marvel stuff, you might find some enjoyment in it, not a lot. MCU fans, believe me, there's a method to the madness for the first couple episodes.
Did you
And
say it's
it's
the last couple episodes they don't like?
the last episode was disappointing to a lot of people who had expectations, who were expecting something. Um, People thought the aerospace engineer mentioned by Monica was going to be Reed Richards. It wasn't. It was some chick. Um, there was the whole thing with Pietro not being Pietro, being again Boner.
Okay, I won't laugh at that.
I was seeing how many times I could do that.
Yeah. With me, I'm gonna say pay for it yourself as well. Like I said, started off a little slow, but I did end up enjoying it. Pacing issues here and there, but I did enjoy the show, and I'm really glad I watched it.
Very strong dramatic moments, very strong comedic moments.
Because
Very,
you have your moments that make you laugh, and you have your moments that scare you, and you have the heartbreaking moments.
mhm. So it's a good old fashioned Marvel romp.
So we recommend it.
So what's up next?
Ooh. Okay, so here on Couch Reviews.
Up next is the Snyder Cut.
Oh, how
It
exciting!
exists, folks. It exists. It exists.
I'm excited for this.
Okay. In our initial review of Justice League, we said we liked it. I rescind that opinion. The Joss Whedon version of Justice League was a paint by numbers, made by committee movie.
It
That was
felt like it was
not,
just kind of rushed in.
that was created by studio mandates. Um,
Hmm. You know, maybe we have to do a re-review of that. What do you think?
do we have to?
Nah, no, we don't.
I have to look at that thing on Henry Cavill's lip again.
Oh God. But
Although I did receive confirmation there is no Superman mustache in the Snyder Cut.
oh, thank God. Life can resume. But yeah, Snyder Cut is up next. Also, we're going to be doing Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
But that's going to be a little later on along the lines. We're waiting till after episode 3 on that one.
Yeah, so this isn't going to be as frequent as other one.
But hopefully we'll be able to give you a pretty a pretty strong slate of stuff to see.
Yeah,
And hopefully one day we can resume car reviews. It's going to be in a brand new car though.
now it's going to be tough because I'm in New York and you're in
And I'm
Maryland.
in Maryland.
So this is how we might do. This is how I'm thinking about doing it. We could both see the movie the same weekend,
Mm-hmm.
and then we can do a review like on a Saturday night or Sunday night.
Could do that.
So we're gonna be creative here.
All right.
So yeah, because with car reviews, we tried to give you a review like every other week, if not every week.
Mhm.
But here, it's only gonna be twice a month,
Yeah.
maybe 3 times a month.
Yeah, because we got the Marvel stuff's gonna come out pretty consistently. Let's be honest on that. They have the schedule pretty much mapped out where there's gonna be a new thing with Marvel every week. Even on the off week, there's a making of the previous series. Um,
But yeah, that's our So yeah, that is our thoughts on WandaVision. We're excited to be doing this again, aren't we?
oh yeah, we are back, baby.
We're back and we're better than ever.
Oh, let's not
And
get
you can't
hasty there.
smack me this time. Oh, dang it. You can virtually smack me. So, okay, guys, we will see you later. Like, comment,
Comment,
subscribe, and hit
hit that
that bell
bell.
for notifications. Thanks, guys. We will see you soon. Stay safe and take care.
Excelsior!